Hi everyone, I hope that you're well. Happy New Year, happy 2022 from me and CCT. We're 5 days into the new year, and by now I'm sure that we're going through our New Year's resolutions and trying to live them out a day at a time. So today I'm actually going to be talking about New Year's resolutions as a fervent and rather diligent writer of lists and New Year's resolutions. And I'm going to be talking to you about exactly why I no longer have New Year's resolutions. So, for the last 5 years or so, I've stopped writing New Year's resolutions, and here's why. Whenever I write New Year's resolutions, I do so from the basis of lofty and high, airy fairy ideals that I wish I could achieve. And more often than not, I have the false assumption that having a new year, essentially the clock striking midnight and having one more digit added to the calendar from 2021 to 2022, will somehow give me the passion, the zeal, the drive that is required to achieve these lofty ideals. And it hasn't really worked out. What I've opted to do instead for the last 5 years, and it's worked out really well for the most part, is writing down a series of reflections about the year gone by. Too often we forget that a year may contain 365 days, but it cannot in fact summate the life experiences that we go through. So 365 days is a lot, but we live every moment of each and every day. And too often we forget the many milestones that we've achieved, the little victories that we've had. So what I usually do is, whether it's during the first week of the new year or even as the year progresses, so maybe 2-3 weeks in, I'll write a series of journal entries where I evaluate the year that's gone by. The one thing that I've learned about life is you can't effectively move forward without traversing the landscape of where you've been. So I usually write down a series of journal entries rather, where I look at one, where have I been? And where I've been scopes a lot of things. It's where have I been emotionally, where have I been mentally, where have I been spiritually, where have I been physically in terms of my health and my fitness, where have I been in line with the many goals that I'd like to achieve. And I sit down and I look at the many things that I have achieved. And sometimes it's not necessarily the big things or the big milestones that people will refer to, for example, getting a job or promotions or anything that is that significant and so worthy that it can be shown to the world as a huge milestone. Sometimes it's little things like having read a series of books that I said I would read, or having spent more time with family. It's really about delving into what is important to you and the unique and idiosyncratic things that you've done that are specific to you. Because too often we look at the world's expectation of what success should be like. So success should look like getting a job, getting a promotion in your job, earning 6 figures or plus, having a life partner, getting engaged, getting married, having kids. And although those are really significant milestones and very fair goals to have in terms of wanting to achieve that in your life, they don't necessarily fit the bill of the day-to-day run-of-the-mill activities. One thing I've realized is life is a series of very ordinary days that stack up into monumental milestones. And then you start another series of days which will be ordinary and boring and simple, but they'll also stack up to monumental life milestones. So what I look at is the little things, the little victories that I've won, the little steps that I've taken, and I sort of charter a map. Once you've got your little victories and your little milestones and the little things that you've done that have given you a sense of self, given you a sense of who you are, and also given you a sense of pride, you can then extrapolate going into the new year how you want to build on those. So, for example, if I spend more time with my family in 2021, I might decide that I want to increase my circle of friends and become more sociable. So, for example, if you're introverted, that might be a very good goal to set. Yes, COVID is alive and well. So, obviously, all protocol will have to be observed, whether it's calling your friends and having FaceTime with them, or seeing if you can meet in person. Obviously, sanitizers, social distancing in play. And in that way, I've found that I gain not only a sense of purpose and a sense of pride and accomplishment as to what I've achieved in the year before, but it also gives me a solid way to track and to build on that momentum around the things that matter most to me. One of the things that I've realized is we, as the young generation, I'm still young, guys. I will die young, the young 40s, the younger generation. We are saddled with a lot of issues from days gone by. By the time our parents were our age, they'd moved out of their homes, they had bought houses, they had found life partners, they were able to go on holiday 3 times a year. And those were the expectations that we set for ourselves as standards for perfection. They had probably been promoted. In some instances, our parents only had one job. They stayed with one firm, and they were able to reach levels of elevation and get promoted and provide us with a very good life, if not decent, in comparison to what we have today. So when we compare ourselves to those standards and we compare ourselves to what we think we should have achieved by the time that our parents did, it sets us up for a lot of failure, and it sets us up for a lot of mental distress. And that's one of the things that made me stop writing New Year's resolutions, because I realized that when I wrote these New Year's resolutions, it was on the basis of what was expected, what was deemed to be success in the eyes of society. And right about now, many of those things aren't possible. Quite a few people, excessive numbers of people, lost their jobs in 2021 because of the pandemic. Our lives have been upended, and life as we know it doesn't really make sense. So when we look at what we'd like to achieve in the days to come and what we'd like to be and who we'd like to be, my urge would be for us to look at introspection and figuring out the things that set our hearts on fire, the things that are really important to us. This is family, this is friends, this is maybe a cause that is close to your heart. This could be personal goals in trying to deal with long buried trauma, or becoming a better person, or building stronger and deeper, more meaningful connections and relationships. And so in closing, as you think about what your New Year's resolutions would be, or what you would like to achieve in the coming year, I pose the following question to you. If you were to wake up tomorrow and it was your last day and you were on your deathbed, and you had a moment to evaluate your life in terms of what you will miss and what you loved and what you cared about, what will it be? If it's your health and the fact that you led a healthy, fulfilling life, and you were there for your friends, and you were there for your family, and you were there to watch your kids grow up, or you were there for your siblings, then take little steps every single day to try and be healthier, and look at it from a perspective of being healthy for yourself and for those you love. If it's your family and your friends in terms of the connections that you've made and the families that you've built, then take a moment today to try and strengthen those relationships and to build deep and meaningful connections that relate to having the tough discussions and asking the hard questions. If it's about living a life that is a legacy where you touched people's lives, then evaluate the job that you're doing. Are you happy with it? Does it actually align with your goals and your vision and your mission? And if you don't have a job because of the pandemic, start asking yourself the question, what would you do if you could? And whether it's upcycling, upskilling, uplearning, and reading up on courses and trying to educate yourself, or build your skill set and resume around certain issues and topics. There's so many sites where you can go learn for free online. If it's writing that book that you've wanted to write since you were 15, then get a pen, get a paper. You might not have a laptop, you might not have internet, but you can certainly write it down. My closing messages: our life is our own, and even though we may feel like we are subject to the external circumstances that are beyond our control, for example the pandemic, for example global crises, for example high levels of unemployment as caused by COVID, you can make a difference towards building the day of your dreams, which will become the week of your dreams, which will become the month, the year of your dreams. When you figure out what matters most to you, when you find what resonates with your heart and your soul, and you take it a day at a time. And most importantly, when you look back at the very harsh terrain that you've traversed in the year gone by, in the years gone by, and you take a moment to thank yourself, to congratulate yourself, to be proud of yourself, ukuziqhenya ukuthi you survived, that you conquered, that you are here today. It makes a whole lot of difference. Here's wishing you a happy 2022 and a life of meaning and purpose as opposed to hype. Thanks. Lots of love from me and CCT.